Welcome to the latest episode of the Creative Lens, and today we're going to be talking about a very, very important topic, and one which is very difficult to get right particularly, and that's going to be mental health and managing your mental health as an artist, and particularly as a professional artist. So one thing Wade and I, we're very fortunate enough to have sustainable and sustainable and solid careers as creators with what we do, but establishing or getting to that point wasn't exactly, from my own personal experience, it wasn't the smoothest road, and it takes time, and there's a lot of tricky situations you have to navigate in terms to get to that point. And for me personally, I'm not saying this is for everybody, but it took me maybe 10 to 12 years to really feel like I had it up and running and had it dialed in, where I had a sense of stability, financially and otherwise, with what I was doing in order for the business to sustain itself moving forward. Wade, it's a bit of probably a lot of things we can unpack with this one today, but what is your experience? You've had somewhat of a meteoric rise in terms of blowing up your YouTube channel. Where would you like to start off with this one, man?
Oh man, there's so much stuff. There is one in particular I want to start on, but one second. Obviously, you got to look after yourself in regards to your health, your sleep, and you got to. I know I don't want to unpack too much straight away, so I was going to get into this habit of listing everything out because my brain's holding all this stuff. But I'm just going to start with the one I think, as a creative in particular, you really need to focus on, and that is, kind of don't get too caught up looking at everyone else, because I know that when I had a smaller YouTube channel, I used to look at other channels who I've since overtaken and go, oh man, I wish I was as good as them. But the funny thing is, when I overtook them and had much larger channel, I didn't care about them anymore. Then I'm just looking at these other people and going, looking at them, and I'm like, well, how come I can't get their views? There's always someone better. And I found that idea of comparing yourself to other people, like comparison is a thief of joy, that whole thing.
Yep.
I don't want to get straight into something that's too cliche, but I think it's one of the most important things, because even as an artist, if you are a really great artist and you create awesome work, you're always going to find someone who makes you feel like you're not good at all. If you look hard enough, you'll find them. And at the end of the day, I think regardless of what you're doing, you really need to focus more on how much you've improved. And if you think the work you produce stands on its own as value in regard to, the value of it and what it is you're trying to create.
Well, this is I think we need to unpack that a bit more, I think. One thing where artists, you got to ask yourself a really serious question is, why do you make art? And I think if you're using external metrics to measure the success or to justify why you do something artistically, you're setting yourself up for failure. Because you make art. Let's backtrack. I don't want to. This is why everyone makes art. But for me personally, I think you want to be doing it. You have to do something, obviously you want to make a business, but if you're doing something as a creative expression, you have to do it, even if no one is going to see this or listen to it or watch it, it has to be worthwhile to you. That expression has to be meaningful to you. So I guess art, you're pursuing something meaningful, a thought, an expression, you're exploring something meaningful. And if you're converting that into a business, if you're doing something purely just for a competitive sake, it's almost like converting art in what we do in something to more like a sport. I want to be the best basketball player or the best fighter or whatever. And I think you just have to, it's almost like the audience doesn't matter when you're creating art in a lot of ways. You just have to be working on something that you really enjoy and is meaningful for you to work on. And then you can put it out and give people the opportunity to look at it. But that becomes a tricky situation when there's a business attached to it, and particularly a service-based business with what we're doing. But with that, it boils back to what's meaningful. And is that is what you're doing creating value and meaningful to the people who want to digest your content or your services? And I think that's the only box you have to tick. And if you work on just trying to get better at that, not necessarily worrying too much about external metrics, but if you focus on just trying to improve your ability in being of service to yourself or your future self and the people you're working for, generally the external metrics take care of themselves in a long enough timeline. And it's one of those things too, man, like there's a timeline, like if you graft it out in terms of like success in your business, like a lot of times you're just like trying to keep your head above water in those first few years. Like if you're lucky enough to have your means taken care of in a business in the early years, like awesome. But sometimes you're just trying to survive in the early period and build and like see whether there's actually something viable in what you're doing. But eventually, like I've noticed, like after like 10 years, like the curves just start going up exponentially, like in that direction. It almost becomes easy. But it took time to sort of lay that foundation. And maybe whether that's building your skill sets, building your connections, your network. But yeah, I think you have to steer clear of that, and you have to examine your intentions of why you're doing it and what you're doing deeply, rather than just comparing yourself to other people. Because like you said, man, it's a losing race, man. Like if you're comparing yourself in like almost like an athletic competition like sense, like it's never ending. There's always someone to fight. There's always you're not gonna live in a contented way.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the whole idea of the external validation is not really the reason to do things. It can be okay to get some when you feel it is constructive, but ultimately, yeah, I feel like when you're going from creative to creative business, it's almost like that's like a natural step. The creativity has to come first. You have to do your own thing and master that skill that you want to create as a creative. Taking it to business, then you have to, there's a degree of the cross section between offering something people want and doing it in the way that you do it. Otherwise, if you go too far into the doing what other people want, then you lose that creative side of things. And that's really going to play in your mental health because you won't enjoy it anymore. But going back to the external, there's always going to be people who say negative things. And I know that because I'm on YouTube, there's always negative comments. I always read them constructively, but if someone's just having a whinge or someone's just basically being nasty, I just ignore it. And I feel like one of the best things you can do is for your mental health is that whole idea of not trying to please everyone, not trying to create something for everyone. Create something for you with that cross section of something that you think other people will appreciate, and let the people who appreciate it come to it. You do have to, obviously, from a business perspective, there's marketing and awareness, getting people to see it, but let the people who appreciate your work come to you, because then you'll be doing the work you want to do instead of trying to conform to a work style or a product that you really don't want to work on. And that is going to be a big part of being happy with what you do, I think.
When I first started my channel, man, like I was terrible at making videos, like terrible. Like
everyone is, aren't they?
Yeah, but bad. And even though I'd given like probably 10, 12,000 classes and worked with clients at that point, I found myself uncomfortable presenting in front of the camera, because you see people, like you compare yourself to people who had massive channels and they might have really overly charismatic personality. So you start sort of trying to pick up and imitate other people. Oh, I think that's because if I'm going to get a big channel like this guy, I got to do this. And it wasn't until I just, I've found maybe I got to do videos because then people start getting me this. And then I do this video, I'll get these people to like it. And it just got to the point where I'm like, fuck this. Sorry for swearing if that offends you, but I'm okay with it.
Oh no, the YouTube monetization.
Oh, really? No. No,
I don't think it's a big deal. I'm only kidding.
It's just, you have to do something that you want to do. You got to be willing to climb the ladder. There's ladders to climb everywhere, but it's got to be the ladder that you want to climb.
Exactly. And going back, and also once again, this seems to be a bit of a thing, but going back to one of our previous episodes, getting some downtime, If you go too hard, you can burn out. But while you have that inspiration, if you have the energy and you're enjoying it, awesome. But if you start to burn out, there's nothing wrong with taking a break. Otherwise, you might find yourself starting to hate something you actually enjoy.
You should take breaks all the time, man. Like, you should work in a way which is sustainable. But let's sort of sidestep, because we don't want to dig too much into the one point. Other things too, man, particularly if you work from home, which we both do, is I think having things which break up the environment. Like, that's one thing I've endeavored to work on after having some time off, was like, man, I'm gonna get back in training a bit more. Like, as I'm gonna pick up an extra day a week just training jits, and just to sort of break up that environment and sort of make sure I'm living better balanced.
I know what you mean. I actually have for one, my office is in a room with a door on it, so I shut the door. All the phones that I have attached to my business are in the office, and I don't hear them when I'm not working, and I've got set work hours, so I switch on, switch off. It's funny because I noticed when I was at your house last time is that you don't have a door in your office, but you've established like a curtain, so you could have that visual disconnect.
Well, it's a pull across. It's like a Venetian.
That's it. Yeah. So you can actually separate yourself visually from your workspace.
Oh, I don't. I leave it open, man. But it's something, and that's, if I can chill out at home. Like, I'm pretty good at disconnecting, but I've tried to do is I've tried to optimize my environment to remove friction between me training or practicing as a guitarist and musician, but also doing my work. So, but that comes with its pitfalls. Is like, yeah, that's cool, but you also have to have mechanisms in place to switch off. And that's where, because I've got a gym and everything set up at home, like, I've virtually created my own little like compound where I could be largely because of COVID, man.
Well, was it you told me everything you need, nothing you don't?
Yeah, everything I need, nothing I don't. But what I do need is I need to break up the environment in order to work and maintain good mental health, man. Is like, if I spend all my time in my office and or where I can see my office from like a certain places in my house, then I notice that my mental health suffers for that, man. So having those things, like, before I was training jiu-jitsu years ago, like, I was going out and like I'd go do like a gym at lunchtime, like lift some weights or do whatever. So it's just having those things, and like, I'm not saying everyone has to like find that thing which gets you out of the environment, so you're not just like living and looking at your office the whole time, because that can burn you out quicker and by not switching off.
I agree, man. And just a quick sidestep, because I don't want to leave this point yet, but the fact that you work out, do something physical, is a big part of your mental health, because if you're not doing a physical job, you've got to look after yourself physically, and you've got to feel good. Like, if you don't, that will have its impact on you mentally. But going back to the...
I want to cut you off, man. Dude, I did my first ever hot yoga class last night.
Oh, yeah?
One of my niece, she's like, I got this free pass. Do you want to come and try it out? Well, she does it. And I was like, sure, whatever. How hard can it be?
Yep.
Man, it is hard. Like, I don't know if you've like ever done it before, but like yesterday in Brisbane, it was like 37 degrees. And you're going into this room, it's like, I think it's 40 or 42 degrees. And like, you are just sweating like nothing. You're sweating bullets, man. And man, because like, this comes back to talking about like, we sit down a lot of the time, and when we work, I had like, my hamstring flexibility is atrocious.
Same.
It's atrocious, man. Like, and I was like my hips were sore this morning when I got up. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like, that was like, it's interesting because like, there's certain parts of it which were easy because of like just other physical training I've done. But there's some bits where you're just like, man, like, I don't have any endeavors to get that flexible.
Nah.
But it's an interesting sort of like checkup to notice where you're tight and where you can improve a little.
Yeah, if those become obstacles later, that will have a negative impact on you mentally if you have to work with pain because you haven't looked after yourself. But yeah, I 100% agree. I should try that myself, actually.
Oh, it's interesting to try once, man. Like, yeah. I might do it every like 3 months just as like a checkup to see if I'm tight anywhere. But like, I'm flexible enough to stay healthy. But there's little things I could, there's always something you could make a bit better. Like, it's not suboptimal, but it's I can see that from where my flexibility, I'm barely flexible enough, I think, to maintain a healthy body.
I'm getting by.
I'm getting by. And that's where I want to be, man.
Oh, that's it. Yeah. But just to go back to what we were saying too, is that idea of separation. I have a full routine, and it's not, it formed, actually, the idea of separation from work, it didn't form on purpose. It formed in an organic way, and it just works because when I first started freelancing at home, working from home, this is before COVID, this is a few years before COVID, that first 6 weeks, I couldn't stop checking emails. I couldn't relax, or I would relax and I couldn't get myself to work. I couldn't get the switch going. And I've reached this point now where every morning I go out and I buy a coffee, and I could make a coffee at home, but I don't. I buy a coffee. Although these days now I quite often take kids to school as well. And then I come home. And usually when I finish my days, when I have to go pick up the kids, which is why I've said in previous episodes, I only do like 30 hours a week, if that. But I leave the house and arrive, work, and then leave the house, come back, and I'm not working anymore. And on the days when I'm not actually leaving at the end of the day, I go out every morning. But if I don't leave at the end of the day, I will go out there. I'll start getting straight into something else. Like I'll go out there and do like the dishes, or like I'll get onto another task. Yeah. And it separates me. Like I have to have an activity to switch it up. And
that has been kind of ritualizing it.
Yeah. So I know when I'm not working, and I know when I am working, and my brain's very like switch it on, switch it off. And I'm so much happier. Those first few weeks were actually kind of hellish because I never quite felt like I knew what to do. And when I really wanted to relax, I couldn't. And when I really wanted to get stuff done, I really didn't want to go and work.
Yeah, it's one of those things you think like more, but more leads to less quality of work.
Yep.
And I think patience, man. Patience is so important. Like I've seen this a couple of times, man, where you see people who have transitioned from like, they've got a career, like for example, they might have a career as like a lawyer or an engineer or something, but they want to transition into like a passion project, and they're like, oh, I've been successful in these competitive areas, and I'm obviously intelligent and articulate, like I can do this, but like they don't have the background or the skill set. So they're virtually starting from not zero, but they can see it from where they're standing. And it's like, they get into it and you just see their mental health just decline rapidly because they just haven't got those things. They're comparing themselves to other people while they're trying to build the skill sets. Like, so they're feeling like, man, I'm working so hard. Why isn't this working? You know, those sorts of questions like that pop up in there, and everyone's had them, man, yourself and myself included. And you have to have that patience, man. Like you have to be working on that timeline of 5-10 years. Like particularly when you're starting out from a lower starting point. If you've got a prior skill set which is going to transfer rapidly, and be like crossover perfectly, you're good. You can hit the ground running, man.
I agree. And it's funny though, because it doesn't matter how good you perform. If you don't have like actual healthy, realistic expectations, you're going to feel like crap. So I always use YouTube as a vehicle, maybe because I'm on YouTube. But if you said, I've got these skills, and you start a YouTube channel, and in your first year, you get 50,000 subscribers, that is insanely good. But
you've won the lottery. You've hit the jackpot if you do that. Like I was already like a very good musician before I started my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
But I was crap at making videos. Crap at it. Like some people might say I'm crap, and that's their opinion. They're entitled to it. But imagine I'm a lot better than what I was. And that takes time. And you have to be patient and not get deterred, and just be happy with getting that. You have to be happy with the progress. And you have to break progress down into small increments.
That's it. But imagine if you did something amazing like that, where when you started, you got 50,000 subscribers in your first year, but you're looking at some other guy and you think, oh, this guy got like 200,000 in his first year. It's like, I know I'm doing good, but I wanted to do that good. You'll feel horrible about something amazing.
And the majority of people whose channels blow up, there was a guy, I'm a fan of MMA. And there was this guy, they call him the MMA guru, and he's a bit of a controversial figure. But I heard some people talking about how his channel blew up, and he was just a dude. He just runs his own channel, and he was doing it on his own, like literally like pretty minimal basic production style, like no editing, would literally just set up his camera and microphone and just go. And he'd talk about MMA and UFC and the UFC events and that. And like, I think he did it for like 4 years where he was just like pumping them out. Like it might have been like a video a day or a video, I don't know the exact frequency, but like it was literally a long period of time with no views, none. But he just kept doing it. And like, I assume I haven't watched his content too closely. I've seen a video here or there, but I imagine like you just have to put, and his channel like now is blowing up. It's like, I don't know, it's a couple of 100,000 or something, but is literally like, if you got to lay the foundation, you got to be patient. And I don't, you could argue someone doing it looks like it's in a basement or something, like just doing a channel with basic production, like how easy, like if like say you put in 4 years of like to do that many videos, man, that's a full-time job on top of a regular job. To put in that amount of time and effort and like be looking around and just like your channel's not going anywhere. Like, and then, to see the rewards later on, but you've got to, that takes some guts, man. And like, but patience.
That's why you got to enjoy it too. If you don't enjoy it, then you'll give up. And obviously there are times you're going to feel a bit crummy. That's the thing about like the idea of mental health too, is that sometimes I think some people think of mental health and think, oh, happy all the time. It's like, no, it's a balance. You're going to feel bad sometimes. Just be okay with that, because if you are putting so much pressure on yourself to be happy and be progressing all the time and to be ecstatic and everything's wonderful, then you can find yourself getting more upset than you should if you just go, sometimes things aren't great, and that's okay.
Yeah,
so
100%.
That expectation that, it's going to take a long time, but enjoy it, go at it. Sometimes you won't feel like it. Sometimes you feel bad about it, but just push through.
Yep.
And yeah.
Like, Rick, for example, what I did today, like before I start my workday, I get up early and I get my practice in on the instrument. And this morning I got up and like I woke up not feeling well middle of the night last night with a migraine. And I just, the vibe was low this morning. Not as in depressed, but I was feeling a bit lethargic, man. And I just did my thing, picked up my guitar, and I just practiced in a way which wasn't like, you're not 100, you're not on top, you're not just killing it, everything's not 100 miles an hour, but you're just going steady and you're just being where you are and not trying to force it. And I did some really good work today. It started out slow and steady and you're not fighting it, but you just put the work in and you know that it's going to pay off because you're putting money in the bank. You're just putting money in the bank. Every time you like go about something the right way, where you're practicing your skills, you're not rushing anything, you're just going about it, you're putting money in the bank to take out at another time. And you have to be patient to understand that approach.
The other thing too is like, if you can take that whole thing of trying to force yourself to do a certain amount of work as well. Like obviously you're like, I need to get to here in my practice. But if you just go, it's going to let it happen. I feel like that's a healthy approach for any kind of activity, even if you're just talking about the work side, even down to the admin side of a business. Because even creative people have to do some form of admin. It's just like, just let it happen. Just do it. Let it happen. Try not to go, hey, I need to get all this done in 2 hours. Like, because you find all this pressure and you probably would have done it just fine without the pressure, just letting it happen.
I noticed a huge difference, man. I used to have pretty strict timelines on myself. Like I got to have this, like in terms of like skill sets, like I want to have this dialed in like 6 months. I want to have this in like 3 months, like just working on things. And what I've been doing like in recent years is I'll have a block and I'll go, like I've mentioned it to you before today when we were chatting before we started recording, like things I'm working on, but like, I'm like, it might take me 18 months. It might take me 2 years. It might take me 5 years, but like just kicking the timeline away and just focusing on doing the work really well. And if you focus on doing the work, like you focus on the process and doing things properly, the other stuff, the external things that people see generally take care of themselves if that's what you're actually pursuing.
Besides too, the other thing, the reason I think that what you're doing there is spot on is that the work takes mental energy. And, once again, talk about mental health. So mental energy, you're going to get more done. But if you are imposing a timeline, then your unconscious brain is constantly using up a portion of that energy to go, hey, remember, this has to be done by this day. And you're constantly fighting it, going, yeah, I know. I got to get this done. It's like, and you're trying to, you end up fighting two battles instead of just doing the work. So like, everything is just better if you can slowing things down. You get them done quicker in a funny way. Like being consistent, you get there quicker. It's like a really good quote I heard about working out is that if you go to the gym consistently for 2 years and do moderately good workouts, you will get fitter. But if you do 5 absolute monster workouts in 2 years, but you don't go the rest of the time, you're not going to be any fitter.
No, 100%.
It's the same with work. It's just consistency and trying not to be too caught up in being in crazy levels of work or getting somewhere too quickly. It's like if you focus on the work itself, it happens so much quicker, and it was always going to happen at that rate or slower, really.
Yeah. Like having breaks, that's one thing I do. Another point is I have not regular, but I have definite breaks in my day. And usually with creative work, I found the good flow for me is like 3-hour blocks. So I'll work on something for 3 hours, and then I'll have a significant break. I might have a break for an hour, and then I'll come back and do another 3 hours, and then I'll go do a workout. But I've found like that, and in that break, I'm deliberately resting. I'm not doing any other work. I'm not checking emails. None of that. I try and avoid phone calls and emails as the best of times. Like, yeah, I got some voicemails to go through. But
all that time off.
Yeah, but it's like I find like having that break because like you said, everything we do is so mental when it's in relation to creativity. Having that break to disconnect, whether it's go for a walk, meditate, go have a coffee, like read something else, but having that regular break so you can recharge allows you to come back to your next block of work and then really commit to that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a little bit of a shift though, which you literally got me thinking though, is that, you need to organize your day, have those blocks, but at the same time, sometimes you just don't have enough time to do everything sometimes. Like, so
100%.
Actually outsourcing, like I don't do my own tax because I have an accountant I can pay to do that. I don't mow my lawn because I could instead be working on my business. So I pay someone to mow my lawn. And I know that's, anything where you can create more time for yourself and take the burden of all your to-do list away and shrivel that down. It's like the old saying, I'm not one of these people who really cares about getting rich or anything. I kind of have turned a little bit against like the whole let's get rich culture for myself personally anyway. But one of the things they do say is that a lot of these guys, they don't think in money, they think in time. So they don't try to scringe and save money. They try to save time so they can go and make more money. And I feel like creativity is the same kind of currency. If you want to, or a work business, if you are constantly doing these things, that if you could just replace it with the work you enjoy or you're good at, you could make more money with, why do them?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or the other, the cheaper alternative to that source of outsourcing is just do nothing. Like just if you can't get it done in a lot of time, doesn't get done. It's okay. Like unless it's like someone's life depends on it, it'll wait. And you'd be surprised what will wait. Like, and particularly like I think I see a lot of people who work in corporate lands. They fall into this trap where they make themselves too available to people. Like I'm deliberately, like obviously if you email me, I'll get back to you straight away. But if someone messages me, like I try and respond to emails once a day. And like I try and I check my work phone once a day. I should check it more. There's times where I check it a little bit more, but usually it's like once a day, maybe twice. I might check it in the morning. And then because I've made myself somewhat unavailable deliberately because I want to be able to focus on the things I want to do. I don't want to be getting interrupted. And I've taught people to expect that from me, that if they email me or call me and they don't get me, they're not going to hear from me. Like, those are the times of the day where they're going to hear from me. If it's urgent, but luckily I'm not a surgeon. Like, no one's life depends on what. So very rarely I've made myself in that position where I can work in that way where I'm not being interrupted. I don't know how people operate where they're just checking emails all day and chats, and it would do my head in, man. I don't know how people, I literally don't know how, to me it's insane that people want to just be that connected to their devices. But like, because I think it's pointless. It's meaningless. Like, they're going to write, like, if you're fortunate enough to be on your deathbed and think about your life, you're not going to go, geez, I was glad how connected I was. Yeah. Geez, I was like,
so true.
I was like, I'm so glad that I let my boss like email me at like 11 o'clock at night and I responded straight away. Geez, I'm proud of that. It's been a good life. Like, it's just meaningless. Like, in the grand scheme of like your life, like, you're doing stupid things.
And again, you only have so much energy in the day before you start to lose your stuff. And then again, results in poor mental health. And every time you break your concentration with an interruption and rebuild it, you're sapping that energy, and you get to the point where you run on little, it's going to run you down. But I think it's funny how, so that point you made there about not being as connected and being distraction free, but mainly not being constantly available to people. At the end of the day, it's just really leaning into no a bit more. Like, as in, like, someone wants contact, like, no, I'm not available. Someone wants something, turn it down. Like, one of the best things I did with my web design business is I started just saying no to certain people. I had one guy, and this would have been a mental health saver. I'm sure of it. I had a guy contact me and said, I want to get a website done. Can you come see me tomorrow? And I'm like, oh, well, actually, I don't really have time tomorrow. I've got a few meetings on. He's like, well, can you just pop in for 5-10 minutes? I said, okay, I'll already be out. I'll pop in.
It's never 5 to 10 minutes. It's never.
It never is. But I went there, and then he tried to say, oh, the price, this is too much. And I'm like, well, that's the price is the price. And I don't negotiate. Never used to negotiate my prices. I'm like, the prices are the prices. That's it. It's another version of no. It keeps me sane, so I don't feel like I'm working for less than I'm worth. But he was like, well, okay, I'm happy to pay that price, but can you do this other thing? And it was something I didn't know how to do. And I just said, look, I don't know how to do that. And I actually got to the point where he was that pushy, I couldn't even say no to him there. So I just said, look, I tell you what, let me get back to you with an email. So I went home and rejected him via email. But so it was just a good way. I'll get back to you with an email. And then he can't stop and interrupt me then, because I can just ignore his emails. But yeah, it's one of those things. That guy would have been a nightmare to work for. But because I learnt the value of no, it then carried over into YouTube, where I get sponsors or people saying, hey, we want to do this and that, and we think your channel's great. I'm like, sorry, I don't really have any spots open. And they might be totally fine, but I've got better offers and I've only got so much time. Saying no to jobs, saying no to people, getting to a point where if you're struggling to get things done, you're in demand. You can say no and focus on what works. And it will save you mental health. You'll be much happier focusing on things you know are good that you want to do, as opposed to trying to fit everyone in.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of, you're 100% right with that, man. Saying no, like, just saves yourself, like, from wasting time dealing with people you don't want to deal with. Like, just getting caught up, and gives you more time and space to focus on things which either move your creativity forward and allow you to be a happier person, like, which, allowing you to take care of your mental health more. Yeah, it's a tricky thing, man, like having clients, like choosing who you do, because there's nothing worse than being locked in with a contract and dealing with someone who's just really unpleasant to deal with. And it's just like, look, when you're younger, you sort of like, you just roll with it and you think that's what it's about. But
you've earned your stripes after a while, though. Like, when you're young, there are some things you kind of have to just deal with.
Oh, for sure. Like, when you're young, you should literally start at the bottom and you get walked on. And that's how it should be.
Yeah.
Like, because you got to earn things. If
you never encounter the pushback, you won't know how to push back yourself. If you don't have people starting to do this stuff, like, some lessons have to be learned the hard way. And that's the sad thing about life, is that you should never expect to be abused. But at some point, I think you need to learn to go, all right, I've had enough of this, because it'll put you to that point and it forces you to build that. I feel like that's not necessarily the way everyone does it, but if you go in entitled at the start, I don't know. Young people deserve good mental health, and they deserve the right to say no, and they deserve the right to do things they need to do. But I feel like, you do need to assess a little bit more generously, unfortunately.
Well, young people, I guess we're sort of middle-aged, technically being 40.
Yeah.
But I think young people, they probably just don't have the perspective. Like, if you put yourself in the shoes of someone who's, say, 60, and they've worked up to like 30 years to get to a certain position, and someone comes in demanding this or that, obviously there's going to be a bit of push and blowback, and like you hear about it in law firms and things like that all the time. But I think that's the thing, and it's probably just a misunderstanding of the other person's perspectives. Like, young people probably in those regards where they're over demanding just probably have their expectations a little bit out of balance. But that's part of the game of life. But I think, because that's the thing, it takes energy to say no. And like, it's one of those things where you sort of, it can be intimidating for people to do sometimes.
It's tough.
So I would consider myself someone who's very good at saying no and pushing back on things. But like, even with one of my other businesses, like there's things like, there was a situation last week, it wasn't an uncomfortable confrontation, but there was a situation where it's like, I had to push back like firmly, like, no, that's not happening. And it was like about 3 or 4 things in a row. And like, you're upsetting someone, like whether justified or not, but you're doing it, whether they like it or not. And it's just like, that takes energy to be willing to be confrontational like that, and just to stand your ground and go, no, that's not happening. Like, unfortunately, that's not going to happen.
Once again, it wouldn't be a podcast if I didn't mention jiu-jitsu, but I really liked, there's a quote I heard Hannah Gracie say, it's like, anytime you express a boundary or set a boundary, it's very easy to do if you can back up what you say. So obviously they're talking about self-defense. So if you say, don't take one step closer, or, and you've got no way of defending yourself physically, then you're going to have trouble confidently expressing that. But one of the things I feel like you need to do to be able to say no is, again, it's just time establishing yourself so that you can get to that point where you can confidently say, oh, I don't need to worry about this. I'm established, or I'm valuable in my job. And one of the other things I was going to say, I've got two main points, but one is, I mean, for one, I guess if you're doing any kind of work, don't spend more than you earn. That's just a quick one I want to throw in there, because that will stress you out. But if you don't like what you do and you're hating it, you need to start taking steps to do something else, because you only live once, and you're not going to, like you said, go back to the deathbed. It's like, oh, I'm glad I did that job I hated for 40 years instead of getting out and doing something else,
Like, and to that, like, you're saying any steps, like, and we'll wrap it up here, but all pretty shortly. But like, I've got a friend who reached that point. Like, he was 40, he's like, I hate what I do. I absolutely hate it. And he realized, like, and he's like, I always wanted to be an engineer. He's like, I didn't do it. So he's gone back to uni whilst working a full-time job. Like, so he's still working away. He said it's going to take him like 8 or 9 years to fully transition, but he's just doing it incrementally. He's doing it week by week. And he's like, it's tiniest steps, the tiniest of tiny steps, but he's doing it. Like, and I think that's the thing. I think people think there's not a fast track sometimes to where they want to be, but sometimes you just have to be, it's either you move steadily or not at all. And like, the consequences of that difficult period of him like studying and working full time, like he just weighed it up as like, I can't do another 40 years living like this. He's like, but I can put up with this period of like going through the hard stuff to do something I always wanted to do.
100%. You know what? Just going to tell my own story a little bit about that.
Tell us, Wade.
Yeah, literally. So, like, I started working as a graphic designer when I was 18. I did graphic design and web design, right? And So it was literally when I was 38. So 20 years I was doing graphic design and web design for, and I was good at it. And I still enjoy building websites and doing designs. What I got to the point where when I quit to start my freelance business, I was done with it. Like I thought to myself, if this doesn't work, I am dropping the whole thing and doing something else. And it's just the industry sucked the joy out of it for me. It's demanding customers and people who have these deadlines, and then you work to them, send them, and they're like, oh, we didn't need that till next week. And and it's the few who ruin it for all the good people. But it's not everyone's like that. It's just a few people that make it bad. And it literally was that point where I'm done with this and I want to be out, and YouTube was the thing that I wanted to do. And yeah, like, so it's the same thing. So I moved on to it, but I'm good. I'm a good designer. I love designing, but I just can't do it for other people anymore. But doing it in YouTube, where I design my own thumbnails and I apply some of that to my video style and what I talk about, it's more creative, it's more enjoyable. And I think what it was that I really wanted was the ability to be creative in a digital way, because that's what I like to do. And graphic design was the best of that, but it didn't really work out and I got sick of it. But if you're in something that isn't even your own choice, then yeah, you should be thinking, what do I really want to do if you're not happy, you know?
Yeah, I think that's who you do business with has a huge impact on your mental health, man.
Big time.
Yeah, 100%. Well, look, man, I think we've there's a lot we've gone over a lot of things today, man. So we could probably wrap that one up pretty safely there. If anyone has any questions about anything we covered today, man, they can just hit us up on, is it Instagram?
Yep, got an Instagram there.
Instagram or YouTube. But yeah, all right. Well, where can the good people find you?
So head to creatorimpact.com or find me on YouTube under Creator Impact, or you can search for Wade McMaster. Otherwise, Creator Impact on all the socials. What about you, Ryan?
People can find my works at hpmguitar.com for the website, and the YouTube channel is at HPM Guitar. So if you want to check out my wares there. So, all right. This one's been a lot of fun, man. A lot of good things to think about, man, as we wrap this one up. So
yeah. I feel like I could talk about it forever.
Yeah, it can that way. All right, dude. Let's everyone, I was going to say you have a good week, Wade, but our good listeners have a good week as well.
Yep, you have a good week too. And listeners, I hope you have a good week as well. We'll see you next time.
Cheers. Catch you later.